So I don't know if this isn't really my story. It's not really any one particular person's story. It's a story of people, a story of our country, and more importantly, it's a story of Georgia and some of the states and cities that surround that. And so I like to always call it, it's our story. It's history, but it's our story, because a lot of the things that we're going to talk about happened right here in Augusta, where you grew up, or other places where you may be from. And so I think it's always important to kind of know a little bit about what happened really before a lot of you were even born, before I was born. A lot of us in this room were born. And so I think it's really interesting, and I hope we have some fun today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about this word up here, segregate. Okay, so there's two words. I have segregate and integrate. So we've got to go over those two first before we get everything started. Okay. All right. So I see a bunch of hands ready to answer for the segregate. Okay. Let's go with. I'm gonna go with Skylar. What does segregate mean?
Segregate means like they were separated, and so like black people had to go to black school, white people had to go to white school, white people had to go to white bathrooms, black people had to go to black bathrooms. They had to use separate things.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And I think you hit a couple of the words that I said that I put on here. So let's take a look at these. So the first is to set apart from the rest or from each other, to isolate or divide, right? So basically taking people, or really anything, and dividing them up. So like in PE class, if we said, okay, we want Miss Reynolds' class on this side of the room, Miss Duncan's class on this side of the room, that would be a form of what? Segregation, right? Or kind of like what we've already done in here. If you look around, where are the boys sitting?
At their desk.
At their desk. And where are the girls sitting? Right, so it's a way of dividing and separating people, places, things, whatever it is that you want to separate or segregate. Okay, so that's what segregate means. That's really good. Good job. Okay, another one. So just to separate and divide, just to kind of reinforce that again. Okay, moving on. Let's go to integrate. Okay, so I picked a girl last time. I'm gonna pick a boy this time. With
Segregate means
integrate.
Integrate means like what's happening right now, like they all get mixed up.
Okay, good. Yeah, so to mix up, right? So if we were to say, okay, we want all the boys and the girls to mix up in this room right now, that would be a form of integrating people, right? Like what?
Like Ruby Bridges.
Yes. Yeah.
She's a black person and she went to a white school.
Just like that. That's exactly it. In PE class, if we were to say, okay, you know, we play like games like Catch Me In, and we'll say, all right, we want Miss Duncan's boys to go on this side of the room, and we want Miss Reynolds' girls to go on this side of the room. What have we just done? We've taken two classes and done what with them?
Integrate.
Yeah, we've integrated them, right? We've mixed them, we've blended them together, okay? So yeah, that's really good, Whit. So here, okay, to combine one thing with another so that they become whole, okay? And some more words for you: to mix, blend, put together, or the opposite of integrate would be to desegregate, okay? So, but same concept, same ideas, just different words, okay? So if I say separate, divide, or if I say mix, combine, blend, we're just talking about segregate and then integrate, okay? That's really good. Now, some of you, I've already heard it a little bit now. Let's talk about why are these things important, right? Other than just knowing what they mean, why is understanding what segregate means and integrate means, why is that important? AD?
Because you get to know more people if you're integrating.
Okay, good. Very good. So like that could be like a result of mixing together, right? Or blending differences together. Yeah. What else? What you got?
You could have something, maybe you'll have a test on it or something.
Yeah, so you could have something where you really have to do something, and it'd be really hard for one group just to do it by themselves. Maybe they need more, but those people might not be the same as that one group, right? That's really good. So here, and we're going to kind of do a little activity, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. But when you think about segregate and integrate, you may want to think about it in this way. To segregate, and I put here civil rights era, which that's a lot of what y'all have been talking about. That's what happened back then 50, 60, 70 years ago, okay? And I say society. What do I mean when I say society? Anybody know? Skylar.
Does it mean, like...
What does it sound like?
Does it sound like, I forgot the word. Are you kind of like guessing what happened?
Like what society means, like what that word means. If we don't, we can learn about it. I got a quick, easy way to tell you what it means, okay? I like to think about it as basically people in the world. So people out there, so we're in here, society's out there, in the world, people in the community, people in the city, okay? That's society, a community of people. It's like at prep, the community of prep, society, okay? So a group of people out there in the world, okay? So 50, 60, 70 years ago, society, groups of people, especially in the South, everybody lived in a way that things were segregated, okay? Things were separate, they were divided, people were divided, places were divided, things like that, okay? And now, we live in more of a world, a community, a society where things are more integrated, okay? So that's why the then and now is up there. All right, so now what we're going to do, okay? It's the fun part. Okay, we're going to have a boy group and a girl group. I'm going to put the girls in charge of, you're going to be my integrators, okay? You're going to integrate. Now, we don't have to integrate people, we're going to integrate candy, okay? So we have that. Boys, you're in charge of segregating candy, okay? So I'm going to show you kind of how we're going to do this. So we have we'll split the room up. So I'll put one pan here. Jacob, you're going to hold that down there. Put the other pan right here. Okay, I'm going to talk to so I'm going to tell both groups what each is doing, and then I'm going to let y'all get started so you both know what's going on. Okay, so boys, you're going to segregate this candy. Now I have a bunch of it. It's a bunch of different flavors. Nerds, Laffy Taffy, Gobstop. You'll see when you open it up. Okay? We're not opening it up, but when you start separating them, okay? So I'm gonna do that. Okay, you're going. Yeah, you're gonna. All right. Now, before you get started, just take a look in there and see. Now, girls. Y'all's job is to integrate, okay? Y'all have to take these different... That was really, really good. That was really, really good. AD, was that really, really hard to separate all those things? Not really?
Not at all.
So you would say it was easy? Was it pretty easy? What made it easy?
That everyone was helping.
Everyone was helping? What else?
That you could tell.
You could tell. It was pretty easy to tell the differences in all those,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like nerds, nerds are nerds, and which is kind of cool that y'all did. Y'all didn't lump all the nerds together. You put the purple nerds with the purple nerds, and you put the pink nerds with the pink nerds. And the Laffy Taffies aren't nerds; they're Laffy Taffies. So they have their own group, and then 2 different sets of Laffy Taffies. You separated those out, and then all the gobstoppers were just by themselves. Okay, so you have bunch of different pieces of candy that you separated together, or you separated them apart. All right, and we have the ladies in their integration pan here. All right, so what do we have in here? We had M&Ms, Twix, Snickers. No, wait. Now the M&Ms, an M&M is an M&M, right? Is it?
Yeah, but what
No?
are yellow? Peanut M&Ms, chocolate M&Ms, peanut butter M&Ms.
Oh. So in here,
M&Ms
yeah.
are different colors, so they're integrated inside of the wrapper. So
Yep.
all the colors are integrated.
Yep, that's really good.
So
And I
everybody
see.
can have all kinds.
Yep, and in here I see we have 2. We have a peanut M&M and a chocolate M&Ms. And you could have left these separate, but you didn't. You said, well, no, one has peanut, one doesn't. They're different, so they go together. Boom. So that was really good. And then Twix and The Snickers are obviously different, so you put those together. That's a really, really good job. Now, here's what I'm going to need your brains to do for a second, okay? You're going to have to, I want you to imagine that all this candy, that those are people, okay? And I know it sounds kind of strange, but you're going to want to imagine that those M&Ms, the Twix, the Snickers, the Nerds.
And they have the same names.
Okay, that's fine. They can have same names. But the biggest thing is this. Those are people, okay, like you and me, people. And in some pans, the people are all separated out because they're different. In one pan, the people are separate. The people are combined together, and they're able to be in the same bowl, be in the same pan, even though they're different. Okay.
It's like a different country.
Maybe. All right. So let's look at this. So back in I want to say about 1940s, really 1930s, 40s, 50s, leading up until the 1960s, which was a long time before I was born. The South was called the Jim Crow South. Some people call it the Jim Crow South. Does anybody know what Jim Crow, what that is? Aiden, you want to take a stab at it? What you got?
He treated black people in this movie badly.
Okay, so badly in what way would you say? You want to use the picture to help you out? Go ahead. What do you see on the picture?
He said he separated the white and the colored, and they couldn't drink from the same fountain.
Okay, so like we had bathrooms that were separated. I have pictures of some other things that were separated too, right? That were segregated. Okay, what you got for Yako?
I'm just gonna say, just one over segregated.
Okay, good, yeah. So we had laws and rules, okay, that places like Augusta, Atlanta, states like South Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, they had rules in place that kept society separated. Okay. Now, what things in society were separated? Some of you already said restrooms, restaurants, pools, department stores. Those things had schools, places that white people could go, and then places that people that weren't white could go. Okay. Or if your skin looked different from somebody else's, you had to go somewhere else. And they had signs like this in a lot of different places that kind of told you what direction to go in. Okay, so I have a few examples for y'all to look and see kind of some of the things that we did. So we kind of talked about that already. But like a swimming pool. So if you see here, public swimming pool. So like some swimming pools that you may have in your neighborhoods, or if you went to the YMCA or the Croc Center, you may have seen a sign back then that said that. Okay. White only.
But now they don't say it.
You're right. Exactly right.
Because now everybody is integrated.
You got it. That's
Martin
right.
Luther
It says
King
public swimming pool. Like
and Ruby Bridges also fixed that in the school.
Yep. So we have a store here. I'm not sure what store, but it's like a department store. I really love this picture because it's color. A lot of the pictures that you'll see from this time period look like that. So I thought that was really cool that they were able to kind of get a color version of this picture. But what you see here is a mom and a daughter that they're dressed really nice. It's probably a Sunday. They're probably coming back from church. Decided to go shopping after church. Okay, and if you can see here, the way that they had to get into the store, they had to use a different entrance than what other people had to use. Okay, so they knew where to go in the store based on what that sign says. So if you see the sign says colored entrance. Color, that basically means anybody that's non-white. So if your skin was dark, if it was brown, if it was black, if it was tan, you were to go through those entrances. Okay, so stores were segregated back then. Things like water fountains were separated back then. Okay, so if you can see here, can y'all see that mouse? Can y'all see me wiggle the mouse? All right, so right here, I use my hand. All right, we have colored only. And then you can't really see this one here, but it says white only. Okay, so even something like a water fountain. two different water fountains. I always think it's kind of funny now if you go in the hallway, you see two different water fountains out here. Are there any sounds in our water fountains? No. And all of y'all can get in the same line and use the same water fountain.
Just say people
Okay.
only. It's just
People only. That's good. That's really good. Well, yeah.
It's probably because there's small people that can't reach the
All
higher
right.
ones.
Here's another. This is probably my favorite picture. It's again. But now you can see the white only. You can see the white only sign on that water fountain.
but
Because she's using that, and then you can see kind of her moms and their daughter standing there. There's probably her dad helping her use the water fountain. Okay, so that's the way that life was back then. So it didn't, and here it didn't matter if you were an adult, if you were a grown up, or if you were a child. You had to follow those rules. Okay, that's what the expectations were. That's what they were told to do. So they did it. Okay. Now, I'm going to need some help. And I'm gonna ask this question, and if you think you know the answer, you think you want to try to describe what's in this picture, raise your hand and I'm going to call on you, okay? So the question is, what do you see? What do you see in these two pictures? And then I want you to thinking about the Skittle picture that we saw, or really more so thinking about the candy that you just integrated and segregated, okay? So think about that candy while you're looking at this picture. So let me see, let somebody describe what they see. Whit, what do you see?
The white people are in the front and the black people in the back because
That's good. That's really good. Sullivan, what you got? What do you see?
they were treated poorly about being in the back of the bus because the windows had to stay open and in the gas.
they didn't have air conditioners back then.
Right, that's good.
So
So like,
they had to keep the windows down, and then the smoke from the bus would come into the windows, and then they could get sick.
yeah, so that's really good. So even something like that, like sitting in a different place, like in this, you say in this classroom, there may be some parts in this classroom that are really, really cold because the air conditioning blows right on you. There may be other places where it's really, really hot. Okay, and so being even in the same place, you can still segregate people or segregate something. Okay, and one person's going to benefit; they're going to get treated a little bit better, and the other person not so much. Okay, I may be real comfortable sitting back here. I'm in the air conditioning because it's so hot outside. Versus Forrest back there, he's burning up because there's no air conditioning back there. Okay, so not really. Yeah, but one person's being treated a little bit better than the other one. Okay, so yeah, that's really good. Those are some of the things that you see in here, and that's basically kind of what's my point of putting this picture up here so that you can see it in action. So you had certain people that sat in one area of the bus, other people had to sit in a different area of the bus. Okay.
Coach, what about
Yes.
standing up? You know, if you've ever been on a bus when it's moving, it kind
Yep.
of jerks your body around.
Uh-huh.
What would happen if the bus was full?
Yep. Okay. So let's say if the bus was full, the black people back here, okay, they would be asked to get up and stand up, okay, so that a white person could sit down, okay, and let's see, do we know who she is?
Rosa Parks.
Okay, yeah, Rosa Parks. So Rosa Parks is part of the reason why she's so famous and popular, and she's considered a civil rights leader and very important in learning about civil rights, is because that's what happened with her. She was asked to get up and move to a different section of the bus, not to stand up, but to move to a different section of the bus, and she didn't, and so she got in trouble for it. Okay. Yeah, she got arrested. And so with her,
She was told to give up her seat.
right, and so with her thing was, I'm not getting up out of my seat because that's wrong. Right, it doesn't make sense, and it was wrong, right? And so she took a stand by sitting down. Okay, so
Or sit back now by sitting down.
yeah. So that's that. We're gonna let's see what the next one. Okay, now a little bit before Rosa Parks, like 11 years before, there was a lady by the name of Irene Morgan. Okay, probably a little bit lesser known, but very, very, very important to what we're going to talk about today. So real quick, Irene Morgan, kind of the same situation as Rosa Parks. She was on a bus in Virginia getting ready to go to Baltimore, Maryland, and she was asked to give up her seat on the bus because she was a black woman, and she told the person in charge that she was not going to move, and so they arrested her. And Irene Morgan was able to get help from other people, and they basically went to court, and lawyers and such helped her fight and help tell people that, hey, what happened to me was wrong. And it ended up going to the Supreme Court, okay? Supreme Court, they reside, all their court rulings going here. That's why I got pictures up there. And the Supreme Court came out with this really, really, really big rule, this important rule, this law. And they said that to ask to segregate a bus, okay, is unconstitutional. Basically, to segregate a bus, to separate people on a bus is wrong. And that you're not allowed to do that anymore, okay? So that was in 1947, okay? Rosa Parks happened after this. So really, what she was doing was right by not moving. The people that asked her to get out of her seat, they were wrong, because by law, they were not allowed to do that anymore. Cities, the bus drivers, bus companies were not allowed to segregate people anymore. Okay? So I want to tell you a little bit about Irene Morgan so you know where we're headed with this. Since Rosa Parks happened, there were a group of people that really, really didn't like the fact that buses, stores, pools, schools really weren't following that law. So people told them to what? That it was wrong to segregate, and they said, no, we're still going to segregate. So this is what we're going to get into. The Freedom Riders. Okay, the Freedom Riders. 1961. Okay, so we're going to read this real quick. The Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE, okay, also known as CORE, organized the Freedom Rides on May 4th, 1961. On these freedom rides, people of different races who didn't agree with segregation would sit together in other parts of the buses. And their main job, their mission, their goal was to travel from Washington, D.C. all the way through the South to New Orleans, Louisiana. And what they wanted to do, they wanted to show people that there is nothing wrong with putting different people of different shades and different backgrounds together and riding something simple as a bus, right? Is that really a big deal, you think?
No.
No, it doesn't seem like one, but back then it was a really big deal, and a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it, and they got in some situations where, some dangerous situations, but they still, you know what, they tried their best, and I think they accomplished their goal. Okay. Past that. Okay, so I have a few people to talk about in the Freedom Rides, and these people, there were over 300 Freedom Riders. So we're not going to get here and look at all 300 people. We're going to look at some of the more famous people, some of the more popular people of the Freedom Riders. So the first one's Ralph David Abernathy. He was, y'all know who Martin Luther King is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ralph David Abernathy, he was Martin Luther King's right-hand man. And he was a pastor, preacher, and basically whatever Martin Luther King needed, he did. Gave speeches, really did a good job of kind of taking a stance on different issues and problems that were going on. He didn't like segregation. He wanted society to be more integrated and to blend together. So that's Ralph David Abernathy. The next one is James Farmer. James Farmer, what's kind of cool is what he decided to do was instead of doing it by himself, he decided to make a little club, a little group. He called it CORE, the Congress for Racial Equality, and this group went out into the community and told people and did things and activities, told people about why integration is important, why we should do that, and why segregation is wrong. Yeah.
Did James Farmer go out and tell them, or did he just stay and go and ask the people to go and tell the people outside in the community?
Right, that's a really, really good question. James Farmer actually did a little bit of both. Sometimes he taught people and told a group to go out and spread the word, if you will. Other times, he went out into the community and talked to people. He was actually one of the Freedom Riders, so he got on a bus with the rest of his club, his group, and rode the buses throughout the South. So yeah, that's a really, really good question.
So he did. He did a mix of both.
Yeah, he did a mix of both. You got it. All right, the next one, she's my favorite one of all time, Diane Nash. Diane Nash, she was actually in college at Fisk University. And I had to make sure that I put a lady up here because when you look at civil rights leaders, there's a lot of guys. Well, no, there's a little even. Come on up here. Yeah.
Not all of those are civil rights leaders.
Right, true, very true.
They're just famous Black Americans.
Right, very, very true. For me, when I was having to put some of these together, there were a lot of men, and there's nothing wrong with there being a lot of men, but it's important to look at some of the women that were involved as well because she, for example, had a very, very important role in all this. So she was a co-founder of a group called SNCC, okay, and it stands for Students for Nonviolence Coordinating Committee, and basically just like CORE, they went out to the community and told people why segregation was wrong and why integration was right, okay? So that's Diane Nash. And I put that's her picture, you can see when she was a little in her younger days when she was in college, and that's actually a picture of her now. Okay, so I like to do that from time to time. So you can see what they look like now. She's still alive, and that's what she looks like now.
She looks really young.
And the one over here? Yeah. Depending on how young, you think she is. All right, and another one of my favorites, John Lewis. He's actually he's a politician here in Georgia, in Atlanta. And he was another freedom rider. There's a picture of him to the left. There's a whole other civil rights thing about Selma, Alabama, and he actually took part in that as well. But that's him when he was younger, and that's him now. Okay, so you kind of see what he looks like now. He's still alive. Okay. And I wanted to leave you with kind of showing you the map and the places that they went.
Does he live in Atlanta?
Yes. Hopefully this isn't too loud.
The speakers are on the right, Coach.
They are? Okay. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna take a little trip here. So the Freedom Rides started in Washington, D.C. And as you can see, y'all see where they went? Virginia, Lynchburg, Danville, all the way to North Carolina, to Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte. All right. Then from Charlotte, y'all see how to follow? What's that city right there?
Augusta.
Yeah, they came through Augusta, then they went to Athens, where University of Georgia is, and then they ended up in Atlanta. Okay, so a few days later, from Alabama, okay, they went to Birmingham, Alabama. From Birmingham,
To New Orleans.
yep.
To New Orleans?
So what's kind of interesting about all this is, see how there's a dotted line here?
Yeah.
Okay? So basically that dotted line, what happened was, they had to actually get a second bus to come from Nashville, where Diane Nash, Fisk University, she actually traveled from Nashville down to Birmingham on a second bus, okay, bus number 2, all right, in order to get to New Orleans. Because one of the buses actually did not make it to New Orleans. So they had to use a second bus to get there.
The dotted line means they had to use it means they had to use buses and more buses because they ran out of gas.
Well, and really more than the gas, you see this policeman right here?
Yeah.
So they actually got arrested and were not allowed to continue their trip down to New Orleans. So they had to have a second bus kind of come and rescue them so they could keep on making it.
But why did they get arrested?
When they got to Birmingham. All right. And then
Belgium.
Birmingham, this is a different one, but a few days later to Birmingham to Montgomery. Montgomery
Jackson.
to Jackson, Mississippi. All right, and then many of them, okay, ended up in Jackson.
Mississippi.
And if you can see here, right here, Parchman State Prison, what actually happened is some of the people, remember how I told you before, like a lot of people didn't like that they were doing this. And so they ended up having to be, they took them to jail for a little bit. None of them stayed in jail. They took them to jail. They were in trouble for like a little bit, and then they got out because they had people to fight for them and say that what you are doing is right. It's not wrong, and more people should do what you're doing. And so I wanted to make sure that I kind of included that because it's important to understand that these people were brave, courageous, fearless, and that they didn't care whether or not, if people told them, we don't like what you're doing, we think you're wrong, they knew that it was the right thing to do, and so they did it anyway. And that's, I think, the most important part about it, and they spoke up. So for any of us in here, I know for the teachers and adults in here, we've had, different points in our life where we've had to stand up for something and speak up to help yourself or to help somebody else. And so as first graders, it's important to learn now that if something is right or you see wrong and you don't agree with that, find somebody, an adult, especially at school, find somebody to help you and to help you speak up and have a voice and to stand up for something that you believe in. And if you see something that's wrong and you think that it's right, then it's okay to speak up and to do something about it. Okay? So that's all I have.
Coach, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Do you think when these kids grow up that they might see something that they need to get together with some other people and be brave and stand up and
I
speak?
will.
Oh yes, most definitely. And it's kind of cool because the Freedom Riders, this was one small piece into, if this hadn't happened, we may not be living how we're living right now. And that's why it's so important.
There would still be segregation.
Yeah, there may still be segregation. And so again, I don't think any of these people ever thought they would have to do what they did or run into the trouble that they ran into. But it was for a good cause. And so I think it ended up working out.
And another thing, this is all interesting. And so you might think, I had something interesting I heard about today. But there's a real big purpose in learning history. The reason we learn history and things that went wrong is so we won't do the wrong thing again. And so that's why it's important for you to know all this.
Yes. Yes.
Right there it says the rioters, and there I think that's a picture of them in jail.
Yep, that is actually a little picture. It is. So here's what we're going to do now. I'm not going to eat all this candy. So I was going to let y'all be in charge of how that's, I guess we have to go back and however y'all want to disperse that out.
Yes.
It's up to y'all. And thank y'all for having me. Miss Reynolds told me that y'all have been working on civil rights stuff for the past 2 weeks. And so I thank y'all for listening and learning and being interested in asking questions. It's awesome. And I hope that you continue to be interested in it and to learn something about it. Because like Miss Reynolds said, you got to know what happened before you so that you don't repeat mistakes of the past, right? But then also learn things that people did well and repeat those things. And I think, the world will be a better place. So, okay. So this candy.
How about
Yeah.
if we take turns with it and each